this is Joe Rabil with Rabil Stock Research. So to start the show, I'm going to do a lesson on a specific setup that is really a very simple pattern, but we want to take it and understand when it takes place. It can really kick off a new move in a trend. All right. So I want to explain the details of that. I also want to explain when this specific details take place at the wrong time and when it's actually maybe a sign to be a seller. So one of the things that I talk a lot about with my subscribers are these big green bars. All right. And when I say big green, what we're talking about is a wide range bar. That means that if I look at it from low to high, and look at this range from high to low, right? And compare that going back, we want it to be one of the biggest bars on the screen. And if we look at this particular chart of Nvidia on a daily chart, the green bar here that is a breakout bar is also the biggest bar going back all the way. I mean, I can look back, whatever, it's about 3 months worth of data. This is the biggest bar. Now look at how it develops right as it's breaking out of this consolidation pattern. All right. And then we get the follow through, immediate follow through from that sort of juncture. Now, one of the other things that I notice a lot when we get these big green bars is this added volume taking place. All right. So what we're trying to identify is where everyone is sort of in agreement, right? All the market participants like this chart, meaning not they like this stock. They want to buy it the moment it opens and they buy it all the way into the close. Now, there might be an interim pullback during the course of the day, but by the end of the day, it's closing near its high and opening near its low. Now, every now and again, there'll be a little bit of a tail, maybe on either end or on one end or the other, but we want to see the bulk of it to be green in this situation. All right. I prefer the higher volume, but it doesn't have to be. It does depend on the type of pattern that is developing. All right, so I'm going to give a number of examples of this and just show how it can play out. In this case, this is a continuation signal on a daily chart where the long-term trend is up. If we look at a weekly or monthly, we're in an uptrend and this has been consolidating. And this is the kickoff move that starts a new upward leg. All right. So let's just look at a different type of example on a weekly chart and look at the way this is played out on Microsoft Weekly. So we have this downtrend line that's broken and then we get a rally up. So this is the 1 and a change in trend is breaking the downtrend line. And then we pull back and we hold the 18. This is the test of the low. This is the 2 that pullback is the 2 and a 1, 2, 3 change in trend. And then if you notice, the 3 is actually the big green bar. Now, yeah, it has a little tail at the top, but look at the size of this bar. And again, if we go backward and forward, we can see this is the biggest green bar we have on the chart. Now, also notice how we ended the move, the decline phase. It did get tested, but we ended the decline phase on a big green bar as well. So we want to keep an eye out for these. But when this situation develops, instead of being a breakout bar, it's actually confirming the 3 in a 1, 2, 3 change in trend. It's sort of like a reversal bar, but showing a lot of strength in the move. So this is the gold chart. We get a really nice breakout that takes place here. Now, here's one thing I wanted to talk about. There's 2 things on this chart I think are interesting. First of all, so this is not the biggest green bar on the chart, but look at the location and also notice how we make a move up and then it pauses for 2 to 3 weeks before it breaks out. All right, so we're not actually connected to the 18 week. It looks like it's kind of climbed up a little bit, but it breaks out in the low and the high. You can see how it's mostly green. There's very little tails on either end of this, right? I mean, this is a tail. These are tails, but on the breakout bar itself, it was almost all green, taking out a very key level. Now, I do want to point back at this bar here. You see this big green bar? See how this is, so this is the start. This is another nice green bar to the upside, but look at how tiny all these are. And then all of a sudden you get a green bar here. Now, this isn't anywhere near as big as this bar, but look at how if you compare this green bar right here to all the prior bars over the last month or two, this is pretty significant. All right, now this one comes after an up move to the upside. So we get a move to the upside and then we get a big green bar. This is more of an exhaustion signal, a sign that maybe we're ending the action to the upside and it's getting ready to go through a corrective pattern. All right. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to drop heavily, but it's a good spot to be looking to take profits somewhere on that bar or the following bar, I've noticed. All right. So we're looking for where we're starting a new move after a pause. So we get a 3 to 4 bar pause and then we break out like that. So that's a really attractive green bar breakout there. Let's look at this one. So this one's connected to, and this is on the weekly chart again, we go through this long sideways pattern, right? And then we get this big green bar to show up. It's still connected to the 18 weeks. So we know we're not extended or anything like that. But we get really good strength coming out of this as this is sort of breaking out of this sideways consolidation pattern. All right. Also note the big bar coming off the bottom, the big green bar. This is another good sign of strength in buying. Let's look at this one. Look at this on a monthly chart. So we get the big green bar that's like an exhaustion signal after a big move to the upside, tells you you want to be looking to take profits either on that bar or the following bar. Then we go through a corrective pattern. We consolidate. We find support at the 18-month and the 40-month. And then look at the big green bar shows up as a trigger to the upside. And, we see instantaneous follow through in a situation like this where it's been coiling and setting up. Look at something like TRGP, this Targa Resources. Look at this one. Again, on the weekly chart, we get this tight consolidation pattern that develops. All right. And then we get the big green bar, opens at the low for the week, closes at the high for the week. Look at the dynamic volume behind it. And that is the kickoff move to the upside. All right. So we want to continuously be on the lookout for these bars. This is such a simple thing to be on the lookout for. Let me give you another example or two. Now, this is on a 60-minute chart. I wanted to show different time frames. Look at this sideways consolidation pattern. We clearly have created a sideways line here. And look at this big green bar that shows up with good volume. And that's sort of the kickoff move that starts things off. Now, typically when I'm looking at this type of thing on an hourly, I'm looking at the weekly and the daily chart showing an uptrend underneath. And this is telling me it's getting ready to get going to the upside. And then 3M is another example like we talked about with Microsoft, where we break the downtrend line. We get a move to the downside. We test the low. Test this low, and that's the 2. And then before it even takes out the 3, we get this sort of pocket green bar, meaning it's happening inside the breakout level. It's giving you an early warning sign that things are switching. When you get these big green bars with volume, these tend to be very valuable. All right. And then lastly, I just want to show you an example of a big red bar. All right. We've been going up. We're going up. We get a pretty good size bar here. The volume's pretty decent, but we're still got a rising 18 and it kind of holds there. And then look at this one. This is where we've tried to push higher, but we're starting to lose some momentum. And then look at this monster red bar. Big volume behind it. That's ending action. That's telling us there's probably going to be follow through to the downside. So sometimes you don't get those exhaustion signals to the upside. You just get the strong reversal bars to the downside. These are real important to be on the lookout for. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like button and also subscribe. So my services can be found at rabilstockresearch.com. I'm on this page right now. You can see at the top, I've got my advanced trend and momentum courses. There's 3 different courses now. I've individually priced them, or you can buy them as a bundle, and they are lifetime access now. So I changed that. It's not year to year. Okay. And then we have the individual package. I have about 2 to 3 reports each week, plus a special video, weekly video for that package that covers a lot of details into what I'm seeing for the week. So if you have an interest, go ahead and take a look. Also, the book is on the book tab. You can go if this is a good place to start if you're new to my methodology. My comments are for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investments. All right. Now, I'm going to start out with the 10-year Treasury. I'm going to look at a couple commodities, and then we're going to switch over and go through the individual stocks that came through. So let's just look at this 10-year. So what's happened is we've made a really nice rally off the low. There's pretty good momentum associated with that when you look at the daily chart. Now, not on the weekly. There's not momentum on the weekly, right? We're still below the 0 line. We don't have a lot of strength based on the buyers here as this moves up. So I would view this more as a short-term indication more than anything. Now, the other thing that I'm looking at is on the monthly chart, we, instead of having divergence here of any kind, we have convergence. That's where they're in agreement. The MACD is in agreement. We're making a lower high and a lower low, and we've made a lower high and a lower low in MACD. There's no signs of some kind of a shift taking place. So this could be just a part of a consolidation pattern, while this maybe works a little bit lower to the zero line, and maybe these moving averages come together. Now, the good news is the momentum is very strong based on the ADX. So I'm not necessarily looking for a big downside reversal here at this point. This could easily just turn into a sideways pattern. Now, that's on a monthly chart. So this could take a little bit of time or into early next year, where it's just kind of working sideways, working off this overbought condition, which hasn't been done yet. But we do have some strength here in the short term, again here, that could lead to a little bit more upside in this, maybe pushing up against, this resistance area. So definitely worth noting the short-term improvement, but also recognizing that this probably isn't the start of some kind of a big trend. Now, let's look at silver. Look at this big base and merging a breakout pattern. So we've gotten this monster big move. We got a little handle now, and we've moved to new highs. Look at how the ADX is crossing above 25 for the first time on this monthly chart in quite some time. MACD is confirming as well. Pretty good momentum condition in place on this. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a buy, but we want to recognize what's going on in gold and silver, both showing a lot of strength. Gold is just won't pull back, keeps moving higher. Even though the stocks are showing some volatility, the GLD, the gold futures are definitely trading in a way that suggests that there's more upside, I think, on the way. Let's look at a couple other things. I did want to point out this oil fund, essentially looking at the price of oil. This is a proxy for that. We're still managing to stay sort of sideways, but I don't like what I'm seeing on the weekly chart. And notice how it looked like, consolidation pattern, looked like it was trying to emerge and potentially, break out through this 80 again. Now it's actually looking more like, it wants to test these lows, and we're going to have to see if it can survive. We did see for the first time in a while, if you notice, we go back and look at the DI. DI pops up and comes back down. That was negative. Positive DI pops up, comes back down. Positive pops up, comes right back down. Now notice what's going on with red DI. It's a little bit more persistent. Even through the pullback, it didn't break 25. So we've got to give that a little credit. Maybe this has a little bit more downside. That could definitely hurt. I'm not coming across that many energy stocks that look all that attractive right now. And then lastly, we'll just take a quick peek at copper. This is at a pretty critical point because it's trying to turn at the monthly chart. It showed a nice move. It's trying to hold this 18, very orderly pause or pullback. We need a convincing green bar to the upside. I'd love to see a big green bar to the upside like we've been talking about. Maybe it shows up on the hourly, something like that to kind of get things going. Green is holding above red and holding above 25. MACD is holding its signal line. So it's in position, but we need the confirming sign of buyers stepping in. All right, now let's go ahead and quickly look at a few indices. One thing I did notice is that we're getting a little bit of improvement now in this relative strength. Now, what I have been saying is we had this correction. The relative strength was starting to show signs like it was tipping over, but we weren't getting any confirmation from a price basis. And what I've noticed about when that happens is that if it's a price is holding a consolidation in an uptrend, then this kind of rollover pattern isn't usually that long of a decline. All right. So we're starting to see signs that maybe this is starting to show signs of improvement where this index could actually start leading again, but we're just going to have to keep an eye on it. It's not confirmed yet. And there's not a lot of strength here. If you notice, we're back up to the old high. There's no big green bars. You see that? I mean, the big green bars came at the low, right? And then the turning point, but we haven't had a convincing kind of breakout bar to get things going. So something to be on the lookout there. IWM, same concept here. We need a big green bar. We need something to really kick into gear and break this out. This is a really nice big pattern, but we don't have any momentum in place and we don't have the relative strength as a result of that. So I'd like to see this index like what it's doing today. It's outperforming today. We want to see that taking place. So we don't have that relative strength, and I don't think that's going to kick in until we get better momentum showing on the weekly chart. All right. Now let's go through and look at a couple requests that came in. Now we're starting to see a green bar develop. And one thing I did want to point out, this is a gap. There's not a lot of green on this bar, but you want to fill that in, that gap, if it holds that, right? If it ends up showing a little green here at the top, you'd want to fill in the gap area, and that would be a big green bar is the way I would view it. All right. Now that's good news on the earnings. It's not a surprise because what we've been talking about is how this has been holding its monthly trend. The monthly pattern was good. This was a healthy consolidation pattern. We came back to the zero line. Now I would be looking for some kind of a pullback, just a minor little check back towards the breakout area as maybe a next potential buying opportunity. If you look at this AEG, we've got some life insurance companies. It's kind of a mixed bag there, but I do notice this thing is kind of bumping up against this resistance area. You can really see it on the daily chart. I think if we can come up through 6.5, this would look pretty good. And look at how this big base has formed and turned around, and we've got pretty good momentum on the longer time frame. So the backdrop on this is pretty good, but we need some strength coming up through 6.5. Big gap up on earnings. We are up against the old high and we're pretty extended. I wouldn't have a problem taking some profits here on this, but there's nothing wrong with taking partial profits and continuing to trail a stop because the momentum is confirming. All right. If momentum is confirming on the weekly chart, I am okay with trailing a stop and taking partial profits. If this starts to diverge dramatically, then I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive at an old high like that. Okay, GEV. So monster move. This has made a big move to the upside. Really, the only thing left to do here is to play this from a micromanage it in the short-term time frame, right? You'd have to play some type of little cutback, pullback here. Maybe it forms a little cup and handle on the hourly chart, and coming back up through 300 is what I'd be looking for. There's nothing wrong with this. It's not early. I try and find these a little bit closer to the breakout area of 200 and then look for entries on the daily chart. This is just one that's kind of taken off. It did make it through earnings okay, so that's a good sign. So again, if you want to look at this as kind of like a short-term swing trade, I'd be looking for a little cup and handle to form on the weekly. Okay, so the GBTC is the Bitcoin Trust. It trades a lot like Bitcoin. I actually like the pattern of Bitcoin futures a little bit more than this, but look at what's going on with this. This has a really nice pattern, and the reason is that we have come down. This was kind of harsh, but look at the way this played out. It was a undercut pattern. It got back above. It would have been nice if this higher low would have taken place up here instead of below, but now we're starting to show signs of improvement. Really have a zero line reversal with low ADX, so you could play this as a trend line break here. I think I would prefer, because of how far this has moved, probably playing this off the daily chart, looking for maybe a little check back and a higher low to form now. But, really green is starting to kick in. We don't have the ADX kicking in yet, but the overall pattern, when you look at the monthly and the weekly, the bias is shifting back up, and the MACD and the ADX are in agreement with that. Look at the volume pattern. Everything about this looks pretty attractive to me. Okay, NCNO. A good one to have on the watch list. Someone who sent this over said this is on his watch list. I really like this pattern. This is what we call a low ADX condition that is now breaking out. Now, the reason why, especially with the higher volatility we have on the weekly right now, I would be looking for some kind of a pullback, either on the daily chart or on the weekly chart. Maybe even look for an RSI buy to develop on the weekly, or maybe just look for it on the daily. If you get a daily pullback where the RSI comes down and gives a buy signal, we've got enough strength here. We've got a low ADX breakout condition developing. I just don't want to buy this up 3-4 weeks in a row after a big run. So look for some kind of a test of support and then a turnaround. That's what I would be looking for there. Okay, SharkNinja, another strong stock showing a lot of momentum on the weekly chart, but no entry. All right, so we got to play this off the daily chart. The problem I've got with that is we've got earnings coming in the next, so it's coming in Thursday. So I like this pattern because if you notice, we've got a reverse divergence pattern where this is dropping down a lot faster than price. It's really holding its gains here. I wouldn't be surprised if we did get some continuation, but again, I'd be leery unless I'm going to play options or something like that. I would be a little leery of playing the stock right ahead of earnings. Maybe wait for that to take place first. Okay, let's look at this TDOC. So, you know, one of the things I start with the bigger picture pattern. Even if this is a trading play, you can just see the damage that's been done here. We don't really have a shift in momentum. I guess you could say maybe this is climatic. We had pretty good volume over a 3-week period. So that could set up the potential for some kind of a rally here. We're getting a little bit of a turn trying to develop on the weekly chart. This does look like a climax low because the reading was so huge to the downside. Now, one of the things you look for when this takes place is if we know, how do we know this is a climax? Well, as we're dropping down, we have a pretty low reading here, right? And then all of a sudden we get this big move to the downside and this explodes. So it's almost like we had divergence in place and then we get one more leg to the downside. And that's kind of when I'm looking for some kind of a climax to develop. So the potential is there. Again, we've got earnings. In this case, I would wait for earnings and see if on the daily chart, it doesn't create some kind of a big green bar moving up. And that could set the potential for a better rally to the upside. You know, still, we've got an 18-month that's up at 16. So, I mean, I would say if I'm playing this, that's probably what I'm looking for as a target. It's not a bad upside potential, but I'm going to need a little bit more evidence before I'd be willing to play it. Thanks for watching the show. If you have any stock requests, you can send them to stocktalk@stockcharts.com, or you can just put them in the comment area below. Also, my YouTube channel is called Invest Like a Pro. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.